I'm Lisa Ellen Smith, and this is Focus on Business. We've got some great guests today. They're going to talk about the effects of the COVID virus on small businesses in our state. It's up-to-date information coming from the Small Business Association of Michigan. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, welcome, Brian, Callie, Rob Fowler. Thanks for joining us again on Focus on Business today. Good to see you. Not seeing a lot of people. I was watching, I want to tell you that I was watching a morning show this morning, and they were talking about masks and wearing masks out in the public. And they were saying that this might be the end of beards because the masks don't seal properly. And so there are people that have to get rid of their beards. What do you think about that?
Well, I have to say that, there is such thing as going too far on these recommendations, but I guess we'll listen to the experts. But in the meantime, the recommendation has been don't touch your face. So I'm taking that very literally.
Well, good to know. If we see you next week without a beard, then we'll know it's all for the good of the stay home safe, stay safe. So let's get down to business. There's a lot to talk about right now. The CARE Act has been in place for some time. A lot of folks are getting money. A lot of people are seeing it in their bank accounts, and yet we're hearing that it's gone. It's out of money now. So what's happening with the CARE Act?
Well, actually, today, we often say that we record this on Thursday. So on Thursday, both the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, or the EIDL program, ran out of money. So the Congress appropriated $350 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program and $8 billion for the EIDL program. And both of those are really intended to help small businesses. Particularly the Paycheck Protection Program is a lifeline for small businesses. I know a number of people who have applied, who've gotten approval, and actually have gotten funding, who have said this will save my business. And we're really promoting involvement in those two. But the reality is, I think we knew from the beginning, $350 billion was not going to be enough to do what the Congress promised, which was we will pay for 8 weeks of payroll if you keep your employees on payroll. That's a way bigger number than $350 billion in order to do that. And predictably, it ran out of money. So our hope is, and we have some reason to believe that there's efforts going on to encourage the Congress to put some more resources behind that program so that we don't stop it sort of right in the middle. We have companies who are in the process of applying, who know that their bank has submitted it, but they haven't heard back, and there's a lot of question as to whether they are actually approved or not. So we really believe that the Congress now needs to step it up.
Yeah, and that 8 week, I'm a small business owner, as you know. That's why I have this show, Focus on Business. I'm not brilliant of all things, like you folks. I simply am a business owner, and I have that empathy and that peer-to-peer experience with other business owners. I look at this, and I also know a lot of business owners because we stay together there, and I know a few businesses they're doing okay. Their billings, their revenues are okay right now. And they're looking at this money, not necessarily just for, well, do I have to spend this? How does it have to get spent once you get a paycheck loan? And then what if you want to do something different with it?
Well, there's a lot of different considerations to keep in mind. And by the way, if there's somebody out there that you were into a process, you didn't get the Paycheck Protection Program loan funded, there is a very substantial advocacy effort that is underway to get that fund replenished. So the Small Business Association of Michigan, literally dozens of organizations are engaged. We are speaking in one voice. We have a call to action, and just to really take this question of reallocating additional dollars to the Paycheck Protection Program is one that is very, very active. Now, for those who are fortunate enough to be in the first round, you have some pretty important decisions to make. So the forgiveness is the part that has caught everybody's attention. You get a loan for 250% of average monthly payroll from last year. And as long as you pay that on keeping your employees whole for 8 weeks after you get the money, and you spend at least 75% of the proceeds on payroll, but up to 100%, and then the remainder on a few other things, mortgage interest or other debt interest, rent, and utilities, then you don't have to pay the loan back. But one of the questions that has come up is some businesses are saying, look, I'm not confident that my type of business is going to be back in operation in just 8 weeks. I think it might take a couple months. And so I might not want to start right back up. And even though I know that means that not all of this loan will be forgiven, I think I might rather have the cash on hand with a really low interest rate, which this is 1%. I might rather have the cash on hand to help me reopen later on when I'm confident of when that date of reopen will come. And so this is a strategic question. Every business is going to have a different answer. But what the law says is that you've got this window of time to get back up and running and your people back on the payroll. And that's all the way through to June 30th. So if you want to get it all forgiven, in other words, not have to pay it back, you have to spend that money down in the first 8 weeks by bringing back full payroll. But if you'd rather wait a little bit longer, you have that window all the way to June 30th in terms of your ability to spend this money on payroll expenses. It's just that when you get anything that's outside of that 8-week period, it just becomes a regular loan. It's a low interest loan, 1% spread over 2 years. So it's still a good deal. But at that point, you're making a decision that you're going to take less debt forgiveness in favor of having cash that lasts a little bit longer. There are a lot of different industries who feel like they can come back pretty quick. So you might be in an industry that you're confident. By the time we get into May, we're going to be back in business. But there are some types of businesses that are much more complicated. Businesses where people congregate together, where bigger crowds get together, or personal care services where there's a high degree of physical contact in as part of that service. Those are tougher questions to answer. We don't have a good sense yet for whether we're just around the corner from that being possible again, or if it's going to be longer.
Wow, there's a lot to think about there. And isn't even the loan application process open until June 30th as well?
Well, technically, the program is active till June 30th, but when it's not funded, the SBA portal to put applications into is closed. So in order for that to be opened back up, there might be some banks that say, you know what, we'll take in applications, we'll get everything ready, and we can submit it as soon as it comes, if this program comes back. But I think most are going to say, hold off for now. Let's see what Congress does. I'm fairly confident that they're going to fund another round of Paycheck Protection Program offerings. But what's happening right now is it's getting mixed up with another phase of stimulus, which includes a whole bunch of different issues. So there's been 3 stimulus phases, or I should say 3 bills that are meant to be a response to the COVID-19 crisis. The big one was phase 3, which was the $2.2 trillion stimulus package. There'll be a phase 4, which will be very large as well. I think that will be another $2 trillion or so. But there's a lot of negotiation that has to happen on that one. That's not just around the corner. That's probably a month or more away. So what we're saying is take the Paycheck Protection Program out of that mix and do it now. That's something, the infrastructure is already in place. A lot of the kinks are finally worked out 2 weeks into it. Let's just get that funded and protect our small businesses, because a lot of them have hours and days, not weeks, to survive. And if they're going to make it, they're going to need this a lot sooner than a month from now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how quickly all of this unfolded. I've never seen anything like it. No one's ever seen anything like this from the federal government. It's just really, really fast. Now, the economic injury disaster loans, what's happening with those? Are there news coming out about more of that?
There hasn't been the same level of conversation around the EIDL loans that you mentioned. I think part of the reason is that compared to the Paycheck Protection Program, it's just not as attractive of an option. And the other thing is that they changed the rules a bunch of times. So I think a lot of business owners are pretty fed up with it. That the economic injury disaster loans, they were put out with a certain set of terms. A lot of people applied. Then the terms changed. They made people reapply. Then the terms changed again, and then they've waited a long time before sending out approvals. So I think that there's less demand in terms of people saying, "Hey, you got to get this another allocation made." It would be helpful. I hope that they do consider that as well. But really, the main tool here that we need in short order is the Paycheck Protection Program, because it goes further in covering what for most businesses is their main cost, which is payroll.
Yeah. So the Paycheck Protection, everybody's jumping on board here. I think I got an email from our Attorney General about some scams to watch out for just in this entire window. Are there scams happening with the Paycheck Protection Program as well? Are you seeing anything like that happening?
Well, we are. We've heard from the Bankers Association, some other trade groups, that the scammers are out there, and particularly at this moment where paycheck protection loans are coming fast and furious to companies. There's anticipation about getting your paycheck protection loan. It seems like a moment that the scammers are preying on. So I think, part of what we hear now is that they will reach out and pose as either the Small Business Administration or a bank, and that they will ask for you to send them some information. They will ask you to click on something. And I think probably the best advice here is to be suspicious, to, if something doesn't look right, don't click on it. Maybe a couple of rules of thumb. Your bank isn't going to send you an email and ask you for your bank account. They know that. The SBA isn't going to ask you for highly personal information, or certainly not your social security number or that sort of thing. So I think have your guard up. If you're suspicious, sort of go around it and ask directly to your bank, and really be aware that this is the time when a lot of scammers are out there right now, and it must be working somewhere, or they would stop doing it. So it's good for you to caution people. It's good that people just have their guard up on this.
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind on this is that a bank or the Small Business Administration, they are never going to contact you on Facebook Messenger. They're never going to contact you through any kind of social media channel. They're never going to ask you on via email for some sensitive information. That's just not how they work. So what these scam artists are trying to do is they're trying to catch you at a vulnerable point. They'll send out a whole bunch of messages to a whole bunch of people, and they'll say something like, "Hey, we don't have we need this application recompleted," and it'll be a link that has some malware in it, or gives them kind of control, or you send out information that allows them to access your bank account. And so that's the caution is that, who you dealt with in order to put in this application, and they're not. There's not going to be some kind of random follow up through social media or any such channel. If you see that, just don't even open it. And if there's something you're not really sure, pick up the phone and call them. Call the people that you applied with. Call your bank and say, "Hey, was this you?" And a lot of people may have forgotten that these devices you hold in your hand for texting and getting on the internet, it's also a phone. So use it as a phone to physically call and check. People are in a vulnerable place right now because there is some level of desperation to make sure that these paycheck protection programs are completed and that the resources come to support your payroll.
So pick up the phone in between your cat videos. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's such good information and such a good reminder. It always astonishes me how many people will click on an email or do something in, Facebook. There's such legitimate platforms now. We use them in marketing to do all kinds of stuff. I think the thing this week that I'm seeing that's new, so much conversation about reopening the economy from everywhere, governors, the president, the White House, and also from SBM. And so what are you hearing? What is it that viewers should know about the conversation about reopening the economy?
Well, this is really the most important conversation for small business owners. They're trying to plan out for how they're going to make it through to the other side. And it's been difficult because the conditions are things that are completely outside of the control of business owners. And they've been frustrated and scared for whether or not they're going to be able to make it. And so what we've been trying to do is, first of all, share information with them so they can make decisions on the best information available at the time, but then also to advocate on their behalf. These are very smart people, entrepreneurs. They know how to do things and make things work even in the face of big challenges. So the idea of moving away from essential versus non-essential and moving toward safe practices not completely eliminated for a very long time. And so we've got to figure out how we can operate safely in an environment where we know that that's a risk. And so a few things are happening. First, the governor has something called the MERC, or the Michigan Economic Recovery Council. They're hard at work at recommendations. The legislature is doing some great work as well on it. But there's been an exciting development this past week, and that was that that Midwestern governors have announced that they will be working together in a partnership to consider how to safely reopen the economy. And so this partnership has 7 different states involved in it. It's Minnesota and Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky. Those states looking at what they can do together to have a common set of principles. For our border communities, this is especially important. It's important for disease control and management, and it's also important for the competitiveness of our businesses. When you have a different set of rules on one side of the border as compared to the other side of the border, it can really put people at a disadvantage if you're in a place that's more restrictive than your close neighbors. So this idea of Midwestern states getting together and working together on this is something that gives us comfort. We're excited about it. There are some East Coast states that are doing the same. There are some West Coast states that are doing the same. So the fact that it's happening here, I think, makes it more plausible, more likely that things will come online a little faster.
Yeah, and my biggest hope is that it coincides with the medical breakthroughs that we have. If there's a vaccine, if there's antibodies testing, that those are the things that have to make sense in my mind. Just as a person who lives here, before I want to step out there and just live my life again, it probably isn't going to be a switch that we flip open and everything's just there. It's going to be stages of what could happen next, I presume.
It most certainly will not be a switch. I mean, it will be a gradual process. There'll be risk assessments that are done both on a geographic basis and also according to the nature of the business. We know that there are some businesses that are very, very low risk, like a lot of different types of construction, outdoor type of professions as well. But even some types of office work are very low risk. There are distancing practices that can virtually remove most of the risk, and online and curbside pickup and non-contact delivery. And there's a lot of things that are happening right now in business practices that are expanding the opportunities to get our economy going ahead of a total elimination of the virus.
Yeah, well, I really vacillate between feeling great that we're having this conversation and worrying that we're going to do something rash and halt all the good work that we've done by staying inside so long. Thank you for that. It's good to have your perspective, Brian. I have to mention to viewers that I attended a webinar that I found on the Small Business Association of Michigan website. That is not the SBA, that's SBAM. And it was, for me, it was about the loan forgiveness. And on your website, I found a very rich amount of stuff. And so I wanted to just have you talk a little bit about that, Rob. What's going on the SBAM website?
Well, it's easy enough to say, visit our website. And I think, part of what I've been saying lately is you want to go to the best resource for small business. I think you can't beat our website. And I think that because I know how much time we're putting into gathering information, organizing that information, updating that information. It literally is an entire staff behind doing exactly that. So I don't think there's a better, more up-to-date website for small business in the state of Michigan for dealing with this crisis and navigating it. So I would just invite people to go to spam.org if you're looking for more information.
Yep, there's a whole COVID section. Highly recommend it. That's my go-to. Thank you again for being with me today. We'll see you next Sunday.
We've received a lot of calls and emails about Zoom recently. Is it safe to use? What are the risks? What are the alternatives if it's not safe to use? So here's what we know. Zoom is a platform that's been around for a number of years. There's a free version and a paid version, and it's gained a lot of popularity recently because everyone's been moved into a work from home environment, and Zoom has this free component. And so a lot of people have latched onto it, both at work and for home socializing and for school. So during this past few weeks, there's been tremendous scrutiny of Zoom and a number of security issues, privacy issues, and they keep coming up time and time again. Every morning you wake up, there's a new headline about some Zoom security issue. So is it safe to use? In most cases, yes. However, you need to evaluate your risk tolerance. If you have, you're using it for social purposes, you have a low risk tolerance. You don't care if there's a privacy issue or if something leaks out. If you are in a work environment and you have confidential information that you might be sharing across the Zoom platform, you have a higher risk tolerance. Maybe that's not the right tool for you to use. It's not so much, in my mind, about the flaws that have been found and discovered and are being worked on by Zoom at this point or already fixed. It's about the future, the ones that we don't know about. And if you continue to use a platform and find out later that, oops, there was something bad in there and now your data is exposed, that would be bad. We do know that Google and Tesla and the U.S. Senate and also Providence Consulting, our company, have all just said no more Zoom. It's uninstalled on local computers, not authorized for use. If someone invites us or one of those companies into a Zoom meeting, they can participate on the web. There's not a lot of harm there, but we're not setting up Zoom meetings. So the risks are high if you're in an organization that has confidential information. You just don't want to find out something bad happened later. So from an alternative perspective, Microsoft Teams, all of our customers have Teams. If you are not aware of that and want to take advantage of Teams, we can get you hooked up, get you trained, give us a call. Microsoft Teams is a secure platform. It's a paid platform. They're working on a free version, or there may be some options available there. But for other users, if I'm the meeting organizer, I can schedule a Zoom meeting with lots of, or not Zoom, rather, a Teams meeting with lots of other people, and that's free to them. So they don't have to have an account. They just need to follow the link and log in, very similar to Zoom. So I hope that helps. Stay safe out there.
Focus on Tech, brought to you by Providence, making technology easier.
Today on Focus on Legal, we're going to plan your reopen. Now, it's probable that your business has taken a tough financial hit over the past couple of months, and you've even had to lay off some staff. It is one thing to furlough for 2 weeks. It is significantly more difficult to withstand the pressures of an unexpected 2 or even 3-month shutdown. So it's important now that you think about what your business is going to look like when it does eventually reopen. Take a thorough assessment of your resources, your cash, your infrastructure, your staff. Think about what is really needed to essentially run your core business and what you can currently do without. It is probable that you're not flush with cash, so you're going to need to reopen in stages. Think about what those benchmarks for reopening are. Think about prioritizing your supply chain, your vendors, your product line, and your staff, and see who you're going to bring back first. You're going to want to talk with your key employees and those that you're bringing back first to make sure that they understand that their duties and responsibilities may change for a while. Think about your customer base and your competition. Think about some marketing strategies now that you can start implementing to get those customers back in the door sooner rather than later so that you can get up to full production as soon as possible. And speaking of full production, make sure that your supply chain is healthy and intact. Reach out to your vendors now. Make sure that they will still be available to you and be able to supply you with what you need so that you are at full production when you need to be. If they cannot meet your needs, you may need to renegotiate your contracts or even seek out new vendors. And finally, think about diversifying. If there's a dusty old business plan in one of your desk drawers that is brilliant for this time, you may want to dust it off now. If you have some extra staff that you've had to permanently furlough, you may want to involve them in your new business venture. Who knows? You may have just discovered the next great thing.
Focus on Law, brought to you by Policella and Associates, PLLC.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Sunday.